Welcome to Reading Out Loud of Synergetics Day 6. Today we're going to be looking at sections 400.42 and 400.43. These are in Synergetics in the System section. And let's jump in. Now, we need a little introduction here because we have here a very long sentence. First of all, we have been dealing with the Platonic solids, but we're going now to the A and B modules. Many people engage with Fuller's thought because they're interested in its ideas on social organization, on the cosmos, on philosophy, and they'll stop at the Platonic solids, the tetrahedron, icosahedron, octahedron. We're already getting into some difficult terminology. A still rarer person who wants to go deeper into the geometry will get into the A and B modules. And let me just give you a peek at them because they're going to come up here. Section 900, which we'll get to, of course, in future, is about how to build these models. And in that section, we have a drawing of the A module. So here's a tetrahedron. That's a Platonic shape. And then if you cut it a certain way, you get these four even sections. And then if you slice that, you get the A module, and then the octahedron in a similar fashion. If you subdivide it in this way and then cut that up, you will get the B module. So we have plenty of time to go into deeper investigation of these, but they're going to come up now. And something very important about them is they're asymmetrical. So here's one in my hand. This is a B module from the set by Tell Anderson, and it's asymmetrical, as we discussed yesterday. The top isn't symmetrically located, and the A, and these are challenging to tell apart, but they are different, and we're going to look at them right now. So let's read out loud. Let me just warn you, though, this is 2 sentences, so I'm going to quite emphatically, we're going to break on these semicolons. Since the minimum system consists of 2 types of tetrahedra, one symmetrical or regular and the other asymmetrical or irregular. So the symmetrical is the one that rises very evenly to its top, as you can see here in this drawing. The tetrahedron itself is symmetrical. All of the foci, all of the vertices radiate evenly from the center, but then there are other types that are asymmetrical, and that is the theme of this paragraph. And since also the asymmetrical have greater enveloping strength per units of contained event phenomena, so the asymmetrical states have greater strength per unit because there's longer edges compared to the volume inside as opposed to the symmetrical one. We will differentiate the 2 minimum system types by speaking of the simplest or minimum single symmetrical system as the mini-symmetric system. Fuller's taking minimum and he's going to just use it as a prefix, mini. And so he's coining a new prefixed word, mini-symmetric system, and that will be the tetrahedron. And we will refer to the minimum asymmetric system as the mini-asymmetric system. And since the mini-symmetric system is the regular tetrahedron, which cannot be compounded face-to-face with other unit-edged symmetric tetrahedra to fill all space, again, we'll discuss this at great length in future, but the idea here is a shape like the cube can fill all space, meaning if you can stack as many cubes as you wish upward and then away from you and then right and left, that is what we all know as height, width, and length. It will fill all space, meaning you can go as far as you want. You can measure as far as you want. We literally measure the entire universe in cubic meters. So all space is an important aspect of certain shapes, and the tetrahedron cannot fill all space. Meaning if you put tetrahedron one against the other, it will not be able to go outward as far as you wish. But in order to fill all space must be compounded with the tetrahedron's complementary symmetrical system, the octahedron, which is not a minimum system and has twice the volume to surface ratio of the tetrahedron of equal edge vector dimension. Again, we'll spend a lot more time on this, but I do have a model here from Zohm. This is a tetrahedron, and then there's an octahedron formed in the middle, and then you have a larger tetrahedron. So you can fill all space by combining tetrahedron and octahedron. And since, on the other hand, two special case minimum asymmetric tetrahedra, the A quantum modules and the B quantum modules, have equal volume and may be phase compounded with one another to fill all space. So the A and B that I mentioned would be coming up. The A looks like this, and the B looks like this. These can be put together to fill all space, and we'll look at a diagram soon, and are uniquely the highest common volumetric multiple of all space filling. Again, a theme we'll come back to many times, so I won't spend too much time on it now, is that Fuller is seeking integer volume relationships, and these asymmetrical shapes, which we name A module and B module, can compose the tetrahedron, the octahedron, the icosahedron, the rhombic dodecahedron, the cube. They can compose all of the other shapes. So they are a common volumetric multiple. And since the single asymmetrical tetrahedron formed by compounding two symmetrical tetrahedral A modules and one asymmetrical tetrahedral B module will compound with multiples of itself to fill all positive space. So there is an A and then an A and a B, and if you slam them together face to face, you end up with a MITE. This three-module minimum asymmetric irregular tetrahedral system, which accommodates both positive or negative space, and whose volume is exactly 1/8 of the regular tetrahedron, and exactly 1/32 the volume of the regular octahedron, and exactly 1/160th the volume of the regular vector equilibrium of zero frequency, and exactly 1/1280th the volume of the vector equilibrium of the initial of all frequencies. So here, just Fuller, as he is wont to do in the book Synergetics, makes the list for us. If you take 8 of these, you can compose a tetrahedron. Take 32 of them, you can compose an octahedron. Take 160 of them, you can compose a vector equilibrium, which is his preferred name for the cube octahedron. And he sneaks in here zero frequency. We'll be discussing that later. And exactly 1,280 of them will form the vector equilibrium of the initial of all frequencies, the integer 2. So a scaled up vector equilibrium will be 1,280, which is to say that expressed in the omni-rational terms, omni everywhere, rational ratios, omni-rational of integer ratios, of the highest common multiple all space filling geometries A or B modules, the minimum realizable nuclear equilibrium of closest packing symmetry of unit radius spheres packed around one sphere, which is the vector equilibrium. Close packing, I'm not going to start today. We're going to be discussing that at length later. Close packing has a huge critical relationship to these shapes and how they function and why they're important. And finally, ending this sentence consists of 1,280 A or B modules, and 1,280 is 2 to the 8th times 5. And so there you have this section where he started by stating that we're going to have two types of tetrahedra, one symmetrical, another asymmetrical, and in the end they will compose a vector equilibrium, which is super important to us, by 1,280 of them. Since the 2A module, 1B module minimum asymmetric system tetrahedron constitutes the generalized nuclear geometrical limit of rational differentiation, It is most suitably to be identified as the prime minimum rational structural system. And just to remind you, there's two A's and a B. And it is a tetrahedron, and it is asymmetrical. Known as the MITE, and there Fuller has named it. And we'll go into more detail in the modelability section. One other comment on this paragraph, rational differentiation. So we could say in a more standard everyday English that since the 2A module, 1B module is the least common denominator, is the smallest unit thing that can compose everything else. Ratio differentiation. The MITE is the mathematically demonstrable micro-limit of rational fractionation of both physically energetic structuring and metaphysical structuring as a single universal geometrically discrete system constant of quantation. So Fuller is reminding us here to keep in mind that whenever we are talking about geometry, we are thinking of physical objects, but we are also considering the geometry of thought itself. And so these asymmetrical tetrahedra have implications for how we think. The MITE consists of 2A modules and 1B module, which are mathematically demonstrable as the minimum cosmic volume constant, but not the geometrical shape constant. The shape differentiability renders the volume to surface ratio of the B modules more envelopingly powerful than the volume to surface ratio of the A modules. Ergo, the most powerful local energy impounding, omni-rationally quantable, microcosmic structural system. So here, as is typical when we name two things, they're not mirrors, they're not the same thing just flipped around. They're different, and the B modules, Fuller is stating, are more powerful. If you want to read more about A and B, just go to Google, type in A and B modules, and one of the first hits will be grunch.net, the amazing repository of information aggregated by Kirby Erner over time. And here you can see his page. There's the A module drawn. Here's a B module drawn, derived from the octahedron. And there's the MITE that we just discussed. Thank you for joining me for reading Synergetics Out Loud.